Yeah, but it's kind of weird that Jerome Powell is out there opining on the tariffs. Like, his job is to help stabilize the economy.
I don't think that's
like
weird at all.
He's not doing it because he wants to stick it to Trump.
But why is that weird?
Why is that weird? Because
if you were to drop interest rates, you would stoke inflation.
Thank you.
You would give the big China?
Does not make any sense.
Doesn't make sense to have tariffs on China?
No, it doesn't make sense to have this level of tariffs on China.
On
that entire
China?
What level do you prefer?
Well, not 145%.
Give me a number.
Again, not 145%.
How about 144?
Again, how about 275?
You seem to be very definitive that this number is wrong. I just wondered if isolate them
I'm going to do
a couple
of What's the number, Scott?
I hope it's this one, but
what's
if it has
the
to be...
number? You think it's 145%? You think that the economy will be good and fine?
I actually feel like we're the better trading partner after the last 10 days.
Feeling. Our market is what nobody exists without the American consumer. And everybody knows that.
Hello, everybody. Guys, if I can explain MAGA or conservatives, low level of intelligence and extremely high level of confidence. Check this out. This is just so embarrassing.
Tonight, tell us how you really feel. President Trump going after Fed Chair Jerome Powell today after the Fed Chair issued a stark warning on the economic potential consequences of these Trump tariffs. It first started early this morning, Trump taking to Truth Social, accusing Powell of being too late and wrong on rate cuts, adding his termination, quote, cannot come fast enough. The market not taking kindly to those comments, with the Dow opening lower for the day less than an hour after the opening bell. Damage control came next from the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Politico reported that Bessent has been privately urging caution to Trump on these attacks, warning that any attempt to fire Powell will risk destabilizing financial markets. But predictably, Trump seemingly paying those worries absolutely no mind. He's doubling down on his earlier attacks in the Oval Office just this afternoon.
We've said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Can you guess what happened next? Well, as you can imagine, those comments stoking further fear and volatility in the market, with the Dow finishing the day down by more than 500 points. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table now is Charlotte Howard. She's the Economist's executive editor. Charlotte.
And guys, really quick, this segment was from Friday. So yesterday, Monday, it dropped another 1,000 points. So I've mentioned this before. I went to school for business. I went to grad school for finance, and I still work in the field. The reason the markets react this way is because, love them or hate them, they do this for a living. They work full time trying to figure out what's happening with the economy and what is going to happen at every moment. And they know this will be a disaster, what Trump is doing. Let's just let this play out. We'll talk more about that.
Explain it to us like we are five. Why would the markets be so upset that Trump is trying to meddle in the Fed yet again?
I think that it's worth taking a step back first and just noting the extraordinary horror with which many investors have watched Trump take these actions over the past few weeks. There's not a president in history who has unilaterally tried to remake the American economy so quickly in such dramatic fashion, going all the way back to the last really big moment of tariffs in 1930. That was an act of Congress, right? It was the president with Congress that passed the Smoot-Hawley Act. Now you have Donald Trump on his own, exerting his authority through the act of tariffs, in imposing tariffs in an extremely dramatic fashion, right? So there's been this question, what would restrain the president? So you have Congress not restraining the president. There are some lawsuits on tariffs that might eventually restrain the president, but maybe not. They may be unsuccessful. But the president does not control, does not have authority over the Fed. The Fed is independent. This is a law of nature that investors depend on the way they depend on gravity. And so the idea that he would overturn that in addition to everything else is so fundamentally destabilizing, would be so fundamentally destabilizing to how investors view the health, reliability of the functioning of the American market.
Yeah, I mean, Batya, this is like part and parcel of Trump, right? Like, you don't get the tariffs without also getting the destabilizing attacks on the Fed. And the combination of the two could be disastrous, even if you believe just in the tariff part.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird that Jerome Powell is out there opining on the tariffs. Like, his job is to help stabilize the economy.
I don't
and
think
it seems
that's
like
weird at
he's
all.
not doing it because he wants to stick it to Trump.
But why is that weird?
Why is that weird? Because
Yeah.
you would expect that a president who has a really good idea about how to restore the middle class and restore the dignity of the working class should have the support of the people who are, have the power to help him
Jerome Powell is the
enact
head of the
that.
Fed and has a mandate to keep inflation low and employment high. So if there are, macroeconomic things that are happening in the economy that make it very difficult for him to do that, you don't think he's going to comment
Do you know
on
what
that?
would have really helped? What would be a really good idea right now to help bring down inflation and make sure that things keep running smoothly? It's dropping interest rates. Why doesn't he do that?
Why doesn't he do
that? So interest rates, if you were to drop interest rates, you would stoke inflation.
Thank you.
You would give the business.
That's just so humiliating. That's exactly it. This is what I mean about MAGA or conservatives in general. Overly confident on things that they just have zero knowledge on. This is just incredible. And I get it. It's not the most simple thing to understand. But I'm just not sure why she's even here talking about it and fighting so hard about it. She just wants to bend over for Trump so badly because she just loves what he's doing in Israel. And what he's, quote unquote, fighting back anti-Semitism in college campuses while also allowing things like, Elon Musk, the Nazi salute man. And, the guys marching, Jews will not replace us. Those guys are okay, though. But, yeah, fight back anti-Semitism. But, guys, interest rates were historically low during COVID, right? Which meant people and companies could borrow money for dirt cheap, essentially. And what that tends to do is shoots up prices for the simplest one to understand is houses, right? Because that's something that almost everyone wants. Right, and as soon as interest rates go down, homes are more affordable essentially because your monthly payments will be less. But obviously, what that does, and as you've seen during COVID, what happened to home prices? They were on average something like 200,000. Now they're at 400,000 or more. They've more than doubled, I think, in like 4 years, 5 years. Why? Because interest rates were dirt cheap, and you could borrow money for cheap, and so there was a huge demand, right, in homes. Homes were being gobbled up, 10, 15, 20 offers, right? Because now more people can technically afford the house. So now the house, instead of selling for 200,000, we have 10 offers. We're going to sell for 250. Now that house 250 can sell for 300 because they got 8 offers, right? This is the problem. So you can't just lower interest rate. There's a dance to it. You can't just lower interest rates to 0. Because then you have the problem that we have right now with inflation. Part of the issue was that. Right, if we do what Trump wants, homes that are 400 now are going to be 600K because inflation is going to shoot up prices, especially for rich people who can borrow a lot more money. They're going to gobble up homes.
This community a little bit of support to get them through what is going to be a difficult time as we reorganize the economy in order to restore dignity to the working class.
You know what else would help? If you didn't wildly put tariffs in place that don't make any sense. That would probably help more.
Where do you think the tariffs don't make sense?
China. I mean, the big one.
China?
Does not make any sense.
Doesn't it make sense to have tariffs on China?
No, it doesn't make sense to have this level of tariffs on China.
On
That entire
China?
What level do you prefer?
Well, not 145%.
Give me a number.
Again, not 145%.
How about 144?
Again, how about 275?
I mean, you seem to be very definitive that this number is wrong.
No,
I just wondered
because the economy is telling me that it's wrong.
Scott, do you think that the U.S. economy can sustain long-term
Exactly.
on China?
Yeah.
I want whatever it takes to isolate them and to do a couple of things.
What's the number, Scott?
I hope it's this one, but
What's
if it has
the
to be...
number? You think it's 145%? You think that the economy will be good and fine in the long haul at 100%?
I think the economy will be good and fine, and our national and economic security will be better when we decouple from China and we're not dependent upon our biggest enemy in the world for all of this stuff.
Wait,
we need to...
Do you see how he argues back and how that brainless one? They're both brainless. The other one repeating China. That was her rebuttal. China. You don't think that we should be paying 145% tariff? That means they did a study that on average Americans are going to have to pay for $200 more a month on everyday goods. When people already don't have money, inflation's already high. People can't afford things. Do you not understand why that number is too high, and that's not a good idea? That we're still too heavily reliant on them, and until we build some type of infrastructure, some type of diversity where we can create, I guess, our own goods, we're just not going to do that. We're not going to become another manufacturer. This is all garbage. And then Scott says here, what number do you expect it to be? 140? 145? She's not making an argument on what exact number it should be. She's making the argument is that it probably shouldn't be 2.5. Guys, something costs $100 from China, now it's going to cost $250. The number's too high, you idiot.
Isolate them. We need to isolate them, and that's what he's doing.
I'd like to know what a policy might be that would effectively isolate China, and I would argue that it's not at all what the Trump administration has been pursuing, right? So if you wanted to effectively isolate China, so let's say you wanted to start a big trade war, you would actually beef up your trade alliances with partners, with friendly nations, with Europe, with Canada, with Mexico, which is the opposite of what Donald Trump has pursued.
I agree with you, but they've got how many countries now in there making trade deals right now, and they're going to be rolling those out. And so I think if you let this play out over a series of weeks, you might get your wish, which is stronger trade and fairer trade relationships with everybody else in the world. And they have to make a choice. Do I want to get in bed with the communists, or do I want to stick with the Americans? And I think they will stick with the Americans.
But they are talking to China right now.
You are seeing leaders hedging their bets.
Yes.
Leaders of foreign nations hedging their bets because they no longer trust America as a reliable trading partner.
You think they trust China more than America?
They no longer trust America to be the patsies of the world. And that is actually a good thing. They never would have agreed to do a global embargo on China, the type that Trump is pursuing, if he hadn't taken an axe to that, the whole system.
I think
the way
it's
that
unclear, though, whether or not that what you're saying is actually happening now, because right now we're in the war with China, okay, and we don't have allies in that war. And Trump is saying, well, I hope in the next 90 days we'll get something on the board. That's a pretty big hope.
It's actually not, because we are the better trading partner. All of these countries actually rely on our markets.
Do you think they feel like we're the better trading partner the way they've just been treated?
You really think they would have come to the table? You think the EU would have
come
to the table?
Batya, do you think that they actually feel like we're the better trading partner after the last 10 days?
It's feeling. Our market is what nobody exists without the American consumer. And everybody knows that.
I'm gonna give Charlotte the last word here.
I would say there are two things. One is that it's not all America or all China, but you see now the balance of power shifting such that America is becoming less relied upon, less trusted, and that allies won't turn entirely away from America. Of course not. They're not going to, Europe is not going to get in bed solely with China, but they're going to reduce their dependence on the United States because they no longer feel America to be reliable. I also would say that tariffs from the Trump administration, they're a tool to raise revenue, supposedly. They're a tool to bring manufacturing back, supposedly, to isolate China. It's like a Swiss Army knife of policies. When you dissect each and every one of those policies, it's not like a knife, it's like a noodle. It doesn't really work in any of the areas that they have laid out.
All right, we got to leave it there. I'm sorry.
And guys, so many of our small businesses rely on buying stuff from these other countries. You cannot have this kind of, it's going to crush this isolationist view. This America first view is going to screw America. And 100%, if you're China, you're bending over backwards and probably even losing some money on some of these deals to shore up some contracts and show how much better you are than the Americans. I mean, it won't be that hard to do with Trump. He's just an idiot. He's just a buffoon. You have to be a real moron to believe that Trump has any type of brain cells working. Really, we're the better partner when we're saying stuff like Canada should be our 51st state and wouldn't rule out putting boots in the ground to make that happen? This is incredible. And if you're one of these other countries, even our allies, knowing what America is and the possibility of Trump doing another stupid move like this or another Republican president right? Because you can't trust Republicans. They're horrible with the economy. Why wouldn't you put a risk premium? If I was in another country and I saw a Republican president coming into office, automatically prices are going up on them. Trade deals are getting changed because I don't trust a Republican president. They're capable of doing stupid things like this and show that they're not good trade partners. And now they're trying to get rid of the federal trade. Like, again, the market is reacting to this because it's a terrible, terrible idea to lower these interest rates. As good as it sounds, it just doesn't. It doesn't work that simple. There's a reason why interest rates are not at 0% at 1% at all times. Because you're gonna get a bubble. This is how we had the 2008 crisis, guys. Recession. It creates asset bubbles. Things like stocks, houses, car price, everything blows up in price. Next thing you know it, a $200,000 house is $700,000. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. If you're confused about anything, I know some of this economic stuff can be a little bit confusing. Let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer them if I see them. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel. Please leave a like, and I'll catch you in the next one.